The parking lot shimmered under late afternoon sunlight, the kind that makes everything look more important than it really is. Chrome reflected faces. Glass-caught laughter. My sister's new SUV sat right in the center, angled perfectly, black paint so polished it mirrored the sky. Someone whistled when the engine shut off. Someone else raised their phone. Cameras came out before I even closed my own door. I parked farther back, where the paint lines were faded and oil stains told older stories. My car clicked softly as the engine cooled, an uneven sound I'd learned to ignore. I smoothed my dress, checked my reflection in the side mirror, and smiled at my daughter in the back seat. "Ready, Ava?" I asked. She nodded, clutching the pink balloon she'd insisted on bringing. It bumped gently against the ceiling of the car, squeaking every time she moved. That sound grounded me. I grabbed the gift bag from the passenger seat, double-checked the card inside, and stepped out into the heat. The smell of grilled meat drifted from the restaurant patio. Laughter spilled across the lot. This was supposed to be a celebration, my sister Lauren's engagement dinner. I'd helped plan it. I'd called the restaurant. I'd covered the deposit when the card on file mysteriously didn't go through. None of that mattered right now. What mattered, apparently, was the SUV. Lauren leaned against it like it was part of her body. Sunglasses. Perfect hair. Her fiancé, Mark, stood close, arm draped proudly over her shoulder. "There she is," Lauren said when she saw me. Her smile widened, sharp and shiny. "You made it." "I wouldn't miss it," I replied. "I meant it." Her eyes flicked past me, toward my car. The smile shifted. "You still driving that thing?" she asked lightly, like a joke already halfway forgiven. A few people laughed. Not loudly. Enough. I felt something small tighten in my chest. I kept my voice even. "It gets me where I need to go." Lauren tilted her head. "I guess not everyone needs luxury." She tapped the SUV with her manicured nails. "Some of us just aim a little higher." More laughter. Phones angled again, this time toward her, not the car. Ava's hand slipped into mine. "Mommy," she whispered. "Is this her new car?" "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "It's very nice." Lauren crouched down, smiling at Ava. "Do you like it?" she asked. Ava nodded politely. "It's shiny." "Well," Lauren said, standing again, "maybe someday your mom will get one too." Something in her tone made my stomach drop. I smiled anyway. I always smiled. We walked toward the restaurant. The doors were open, music floating out in waves. I set the gift on the table marked Lauren and Mark, straightened the ribbon, and checked my phone. No new messages. I'd sent 3 reminders that morning. Everything was running on time, except the way my hope felt thinner with every joke. During drinks, Lauren kept circling back. "You should have seen the price," she said loudly at one point. $110,000. Worth every penny. Mark laughed. "She deserves it." Lauren lifted her glass in my direction. "Some people just play it safe forever." The words landed softly. That was worse. I focused on Ava, who was coloring quietly with crayons from the kids' menu. Her balloon bobbed beside her chair, brushing the table every few seconds. I counted those taps instead of the looks. When dinner was called, I excused myself to grab something from my car. The parking lot felt quieter now. Cooler. My heels clicked against the pavement as I walked back past the glowing SUV, past the fingerprints on its door handles. I reached my car, opened the driver's door, and sat for a moment without turning the key. My hands rested in my lap. The glove box was inches away. I exhaled slowly, forcing the sting down where no one could see it. Inside, laughter rose again. Outside, I closed my eyes and let the hope flicker just a little. Dinner unraveled slowly, like a thread pulled from a sleeve no one noticed was unraveling. Plates arrived hot and fragrant, steam rising in lazy curls, but my appetite stayed somewhere in the parking lot. Conversations overlapped, loud where Lauren sat, quieter where I was. Every few minutes, someone mentioned the SUV again, as if it were another guest at the table. "I mean, the financing alone was wild," Lauren said, twirling her fork. "But when you have the credit for it, why not?" She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't have to. Ava leaned toward me. "Mommy, can I have some of your potatoes?" she whispered. "Of course," I said, sliding my plate closer. Her fingers were cold from holding her drink. I wrapped my hand around hers for a second longer than necessary, grounding myself in the smallness of it. Across the table, Mark raised his glass.
"To Lauren," he announced.
"For always knowing what she wants." Everyone cheered. I lifted my water. It felt heavier than it should have. My phone buzzed once in my lap. I glanced down, expecting nothing, and still felt a sting when it was nothing. No apology. No softening. Just silence between jokes that weren't meant for me, but landed anyway. When dessert came, the cake looked beautiful. 3 layers, pale frosting, gold accents. I'd chosen it myself. Now it sat untouched in front of Lauren while she talked, the frosting beginning to soften under the warm lights. A woman from the next table leaned over at one point. "Is that your SUV outside?" she asked Lauren, impressed. Lauren laughed. "Mine," she said. "Finally upgraded." I felt someone shift beside me. Claire, my cousin, met my eyes and offered a small, tight smile. Later, she leaned in and whispered, "Hey, you okay?" I nodded automatically. "I'm fine." She hesitated. "If you want to step out." "I'm fine," I repeated, softer this time. The words tasted thin. When the check came, Lauren waved it away dramatically.
"We've got it," she said.
Obviously. I watched the server hesitate, then place it back down. The numbers were higher than expected. I knew because I'd priced everything. I'd planned for it. I always planned for it. As we stood to leave, Lauren brushed past me. "You should park closer next time," she said under her breath. Safety and all. I smiled. Habit. Reflex. Outside, the air had cooled. The parking lot lights flickered on, casting long shadows. People clustered around the SUV again, admiring, touching, posing. I walked Ava toward my car instead. "Mommy," she asked quietly, "why did Aunt Lauren laugh when you talked?" I opened the back door and helped her climb in. Her balloon slipped from her fingers and rolled under the seat. "She didn't mean anything by it," I said too quickly. I reached for the balloon, fingers brushing dust. "Sometimes people laugh when they're excited." Ava frowned. It didn't sound happy. I paused. The words caught in my throat. "Not all laughs are," I finally said. I buckled her in, closed the door gently, and leaned against the car for a moment. The metal was cool against my back. Across the lot, Lauren started her engine. The SUV purred to life, smooth and confident. Someone clapped.
My phone buzzed again.
This time, a message. "Lauren, you're being sensitive." It was just a joke. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Sensitive. Like it was a flaw. Like it hadn't taken years to learn how to swallow moments like this without choking. I slid into the driver's seat. The engine hesitated before turning over. A warning light blinked once, then stayed on. I didn't bother with it. I never did. As I pulled out, the SUV passed me, headlights bright, music loud. Lauren didn't look over. The parking lot emptied behind us. Ava hummed softly in the back seat, hugging her balloon. I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel, my face calm, my chest hollowing out with each mile, until even the echo of laughter disappeared. The pattern didn't announce itself all at once. It never does. It arrives quietly, disguised as responsibility, wrapped in compliments that sound like trust. Looking back, I can trace it through the years the way you trace cracks in a wall, only obvious after the damage spreads. Lauren was always the bold one. Loud laughter. Big plans. She chased momentum the way some people chase peace. I was the other kind of sister, the one who stayed late, read the fine print, paid on time. Somewhere along the way, those differences hardened into roles. "You're better with money," she'd say, leaning against my kitchen counter years ago, phone pressed to her ear, voice light. "Can you just spot me this month? I'll pay you back." The first time it was $800.
"Rent," she said.
A one-time thing. The second time, it was a credit card bill, $2, $3.50 because she'd miscalculated. I remember sitting at my desk late that night, Ava asleep in the next room, the glow of my laptop reflecting off unpaid balances that weren't mine. I paid them anyway. It felt easier than arguing. It always did. At Christmas, she'd arrive empty-handed, shrugging. "I'll get you later," she'd promise, handing Ava a toy she'd clearly bought on the way over. I wrapped gifts I couldn't afford, told myself generosity counted for something. Everyone praised me for being reliable. "You're the responsible one," our mother would say. "Lauren just needs a little help." Help turned into habit. Habit turned into expectation. There were the cosign loans. 2 of them. The late-night calls when a payment bounced. The texts that started with "please" and ended with "you're my only option." I told myself family meant endurance. I told myself this was temporary. Then came the SUV. Lauren called me breathless, excitement buzzing through the phone. "I found the perfect one," she said. "But there's a problem." There was always a problem. "My credit isn't ideal," she admitted. "But yours is. Just to help me get approved. I'll handle the payments." "You know I will." I didn't answer right away. I stood in the hallway, staring at a scuff mark on the wall Ava had made with her backpack. I thought about school fees, groceries,
Gas.
I thought about how many times I'd already said yes. "What if something goes wrong?"
I asked.
"It won't," Lauren said quickly. "And even if it does, I'd never let it fall on you." She sounded offended that I'd even consider it. I agreed, with conditions. Written ones. The title would list me as the primary holder until a certain amount was paid down. It was protection. Quiet. Legal. I didn't announce it. I didn't wave it around. I just did what I always did. Plan for reality. Lauren barely listened. She signed where I pointed. Smiled. Hugged me hard. "You're a lifesaver," she said. "I owe you." The first payment was late. Then another. When I reminded her, she laughed it off. "Relax. It's handled." It wasn't. I covered it. Again. I told myself it was temporary. Again. The mocking didn't start until after the photos went up. The engagement. The ring. The SUV parked at angles that caught the light just right. Captions about manifesting and hard work paying off. Comments rolled in. Applause from people who didn't know the cost. Then came the post. A picture of the SUV. Lauren leaning against it.
Sunglasses on.
Caption. "Some people stay stuck because they're afraid to dream bigger." I saw it on my lunch break. Sandwich untouched beside me. The likes climbed fast. Someone tagged me in the comments with a laughing emoji. My phone buzzed again and again, each vibration a small betrayal. I didn't comment. I didn't defend myself. I closed the app and went back to work. That night, after Ava was asleep, I opened the glove box in my car. Papers were stacked neatly inside, edges crisp. I touched the top one without pulling it out, just to remind myself it was real, that not everything I gave disappeared. For the first time, the pattern felt clear, not because of the money, because of the story she was telling, one where my silence made her shine. A few weeks passed. Quiet ones. The kind that feel calm on the surface but hum underneath, like a wire pulled too tight. Lauren didn't call as often. That should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like waiting for whether you know is coming. Life kept moving. Ava's school sent home a notice about a field trip, $185 due by Friday. My rent reminder popped up the same afternoon. I opened my budgeting app, adjusted numbers the way I always did, trimming here, planning there. There was just enough. There was always just enough. The message came on a Tuesday morning while I was standing in line for coffee. "Lauren, hey. I need you to cover this month's payment. Just this once." I stared at the screen. The words "just this once" felt almost insulting in their familiarity. I typed, deleted, typed again. "I can't this month." Then added, "I already covered the last 2. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Lauren, are you serious right now?" The barista called my name. I took the cup with a polite smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Lauren, I'm under a lot of stress. You know that." "Lauren, Don't start acting brand new. My chest tightened. I sat in my car, coffee cooling in the cup holder, hands trembling just enough to notice. I'm not acting, I typed. I just can't keep doing this. Her reply came fast.
Lauren, wow.
Lauren. So you're really going to do this to me? After everything? After everything. The phrase hit like a trapdoor. Everything I'd done folded into 2 words, flattened, turned against me.
My phone rang.
I didn't answer. It rang again. Then again. At home that evening, Ava sat at the table coloring while I cooked pasta. The sauce bubbled too loudly. My shoulders ached from holding them tight all day. Mommy, Ava said carefully, are we okay? I turned the heat down. Why would you ask that? You were quiet today, she said. Like when you're worried. I knelt beside her chair, forcing a smile. We're okay, I said. I promise. My phone buzzed on the counter. Lauren, if you don't help me, I'll figure something else out. Lauren, but don't be surprised if things get messy. Messy. The word sat heavy. I imagined late fees.
Calls.
Damage that would ripple outward, touch things Lauren never thought about, my credit, my stability, Ava's future. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the house settle, replaying conversations from years back, noticing how often my no had been treated like betrayal. I realized something then, quietly, without drama. Lauren didn't see my limits. She saw my silence as permission. The next morning, another message arrived, longer this time. A screenshot of the payment due. A highlighted amount. A line underneath. Lauren, you'll fix this. You always do. My hands shook as I held the phone. Not from fear. From anger. Clean, sharp anger that surprised me with its clarity. I walked out to the car, sat in the driver's seat, and stared at the dashboard. Dust caught the light. The faint smell of old coffee lingered. Normal things. Steady things. My eyes dropped to the glove box. I hadn't opened it since the night I checked the papers, since before the jokes, before the laughter curdled into something else. My fingers hovered there now, resting on the latch. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt still. Lauren's voice echoed in my head. You'll fix this. I exhaled slowly, feeling my heartbeat settle. No, I whispered to the empty car. Not angry. Not loud. Just certain. I opened the glove box. The glove box opened with a soft click, the sound smaller than I expected for something that had held so much weight for so long. Papers lay inside, neatly stacked, edges aligned the way I'd left them. Insurance. Registration. Receipts I never threw away, because someday they might matter. The title was there, exactly where it had always been. I didn't rush. I didn't feel the need to. I lifted it carefully, smoothing the corner with my thumb. My name sat at the top in clean, official letters. Primary title holder. Below it, Lauren's name appeared smaller, secondary. Just ink. Just paper. But the calm that settled in my chest told a different story. For years, I'd been bracing myself, waiting for the next request, the next guilt-laced message. Now, there was nothing to brace against. Just certainty. I drove to the bank after work. The parking lot was busy, people hurrying in and out with folders tucked under arms. Inside, the air was cool, the lighting neutral, everything designed to keep emotions from spilling. I appreciated that. The loan officer, a woman named Denise, reviewed the account quietly. Her screen reflected numbers I knew too well. You've been covering these payments, she said finally, looking up. It wasn't a question. Yes, I replied. And you're listed as the primary title holder, she continued. Which means you have full legal authority over the vehicle. I nodded. No rush. No explanation. Just facts. Denise tapped a few keys. What would you like to do? The old version of me would have hesitated. Would have asked what Lauren thought. Would have worried about tone. About fallout. I'm transferring responsibility, I said. Effective immediately. Denise paused, then smiled. Professional, steady. We can do that. As I signed the paperwork, my hand didn't shake. I noticed that. I noticed how quiet my mind was. No rehearsed speeches. No apologies. When I stepped back outside, the sun felt brighter than it had all week. I sat in my car for a moment, breathing. The dashboard light was still on. I made a mental note to check it later. Some things could wait now. Lauren called before I even reached home. "What did you do?" she demanded, skipping every greeting. "I handled what was mine to handle," I said. "You had no right," she snapped. "That car is mine." I pulled into my driveway, turned off the engine. The title says otherwise. Silence stretched on the line. I imagine her checking, refreshing, realizing. "You're unbelievable," she said finally. "After everything I've been through." I didn't raise my voice. "I've been through it too. You're doing this to punish me." "No," I said gently. "I'm doing this to stop bleeding." She laughed sharply. "You think this makes you powerful?" I looked at my hands resting on the steering wheel.
Calm. Steady.
"No," I replied. "I think it makes me done." That night, Ava and I ate dinner on the couch. Simple food, shared from the same plate. She talked about school, about a book she wanted to read. I listened without checking my phone. For once, nothing pulled at me from the edges. After she went to bed, I stepped outside. The air was cool, quiet. I locked my car, the sound solid and final. Inside, on the kitchen table, the paperwork lay neatly stacked. Proof without drama. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt aligned. Later, a message came through. "Lauren, you'll regret this." I read it once. Then I set the phone face down. For the first time in years, my space felt protected. Not guarded, protected. Like something had shifted back into place. I closed my eyes, listening to the quiet, and let myself believe what the paper already knew. I was no longer responsible for fixing what someone else refused to hold. The backlash didn't wait for morning. It arrived just after 9, sharp and loud, rattling the quiet I'd finally let settle. A fist pounded on the front door. Hard, uneven, urgent. Ava froze on the couch. Cartoon paused mid-sentence, eyes wide. "Mom," she whispered. "I've got it," I said, keeping my voice level. I stood slowly, every movement deliberate, as if calm itself were a shield. The pounding came again. "Open the door right now." Lauren's voice, stripped of polish, raw with fury. I opened the door just enough to see her face, flushed, eyes bright with accusation. Mark stood a step behind her, jaw tight. A couple of neighbors had paused on the sidewalk, pretending not to stare. "You humiliated me," Lauren said, pushing the door wider with her palm. "Do you have any idea what you did?" I stepped back, keeping my body between her and the living room. "You can't come in like this." She laughed, short and sharp. "Oh, now you care about rules?" "I care about boundaries," I replied.
She surged forward anyway.
"You went to the bank. You talked to people. You made me look like..." "Like what?" I asked quietly. She stopped. Words piled up behind her eyes. Nowhere to go. Mark cleared his throat. "Let's just talk this out," he said, though his eyes avoided mine.
"There's nothing to talk out," I said.
"The account is settled. The title is clear." Lauren's voice rose. "You stole my car." "I didn't," I said. "I protected myself." She stepped closer, finger pointed inches from my face. "You always do this. You play calm while you ruin things." Ava's small voice cut through the air. "Mommy." I turned. She stood at the edge of the hallway, clutching her sweater. "Am I not important enough?" she asked, the words careful, practiced, like she'd been holding them for a while. Something in Lauren's face flickered. Not guilt.
Surprise.
I knelt beside Ava, heart pounding but steady. "You are the most important," I said. "That's why this stops." Lauren scoffed. "Don't make this about her." "It already is," I said, standing again. "It always was." A patrol car rolled slowly down the street, lights off. One of the neighbors must have called, voices raised, door open, tension spilling onto the sidewalk. The car stopped. An officer stepped out, hand resting casually on his belt. "What's going on?" he asked. Lauren spun toward him.
"She stole my vehicle," she said.
"She's trying to ruin my life." The officer nodded once and looked at me. Ma'am? I took a breath. I'm the primary title holder, I said. I've covered the payments. The bank confirmed everything. The officer glanced between us. Do you have documentation? I stepped back inside, retrieved the folder from the table, and handed it over. My hands didn't shake. I noticed that again. He reviewed the papers, face neutral. This checks out, he said finally. Legally, she's within her rights. Lauren stared at him. You can't be serious. I am, he replied. This is a civil matter, and it appears resolved. Silence fell heavy and public. Mark shifted, embarrassed now. Lauren, he murmured. Maybe we should.
Don't, she snapped.
She looked back at me, eyes blazing. You think you've won? I met her gaze. I think I'm done. The officer stepped back. I suggest everyone cool off, he said. No more disturbances. Lauren took one last look at Ava, then at me. This isn't over, she said, voice low. It is, I replied. She turned and stormed down the steps. The patrol car rolled away. Neighbors drifted back to their routines, curiosity satisfied. I closed the door and leaned against it, listening to my own breathing. Ava wrapped her arms around my waist. You didn't yell, she said softly. I didn't need to, I answered. That night, after she fell asleep, I stood in the quiet living room and felt something settle, like a storm passing without leaving wreckage behind. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't explained myself into pieces. I'd held the line. The quiet after a storm has its own sound. Not silence, something gentler. Like the house exhaling. The next morning, sunlight crept across the kitchen floor in a way I hadn't noticed before. Ava sat at the table eating cereal, feet swinging, humming to herself. No cartoons blared. No phone buzzed with demands. The absence felt unfamiliar, like stepping into a room after furniture has been moved and realizing there's more space than you remembered. A knock came at the door.
Soft.
Polite. I opened it to find Mrs. Henderson from next door holding a loaf of banana bread wrapped in foil. Her smile was careful, kind. Just thought you might like this, she said. Rough night. Thank you, I replied, surprised by how much my throat tightened. That's very kind. She hesitated, then added, You did the right thing. The words landed gently but firmly, like something set down where it belonged. Later that day, Ava's teacher emailed me. Nothing dramatic, just a note saying Ava had been quiet but focused, that she'd helped another child with a puzzle. At the end, a line I hadn't expected. If you need anything, please let me know. At the grocery store, Claire ran into me in the produce aisle. She pulled me into a hug, without asking. I heard, she said softly. I'm proud of you. Me too, I realized. The thought surprised me. I let it stay. Support came in small, tangible ways. A coworker slipped a gift card into my bag and pretended it was nothing. A friend texted, Dinner's on me, no arguments. No one asked me to explain. No one told me to fix it. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, spreadsheets glowing softly. I tracked numbers the way I always had, but this time something was different. There was space. No sudden transfers. No hidden buffers for someone else's emergencies. I closed the laptop and leaned back, breathing easier than I had in years. Ava patted in, dragging her blanket behind her. Can we sit together? She asked. We curled up on the couch, her head tucked under my chin. The house felt bigger somehow. Not emptier, bigger. Mommy, she said after a while, are we safe now? I kissed the top of her head. Yes, I said. We are. Over the next few days, the noise stayed gone. No calls. No accusations. Just quiet mornings and evenings that ended without knots in my stomach. I noticed small things. How my shoulders rested lower. How I slept through the night. How laughter came easier. I realized something else too. Obligation had always been loud, urgent, demanding, framed as love. Real support was quiet. It arrived without invoices. Without expectations. On Friday, I drove Ava to school and sat in the car for a moment afterward, hands resting on the wheel. The dashboard light blinked again. I laughed softly and turned the engine off. I could fix that now. I could fix things that were actually mine. As I stepped out, the air felt lighter. Not because everything was perfect, but because it was honest. The kind of honest that doesn't bruise. I walked back inside, closed the door, and let the calm settle. For once, it stayed. Rebuilding didn't arrive with fireworks. It came quietly, folded into mornings that felt steady instead of rushed. I started waking up before my alarm, the house still dark, the air cool and clean. I made coffee and stood by the window, watching the street wake up. No checking my phone. No bracing for bad news. I fixed the dashboard light the following week. Sat in the waiting area while a mechanic explained the issue. Simple, affordable, nothing dramatic. When I paid, I felt a small, private satisfaction. I drove away with the windows down, music low, the car running smooth.
It wasn't shiny.
It didn't need to be. At home, I painted the hallway on a Saturday afternoon. A soft, warm color that made the space feel open. Ava helped, her hands smudged with paint despite the oversized shirt I'd given her. We laughed when we spilled a little on the floor and cleaned it together, kneeling side by side. "Can we hang pictures here?" she asked, pointing to the wall. "We can hang anything we want," I said. She chose her favorites: school drawings, a photo of us at the park, a silly picture from a photo booth years ago. We stepped back and looked at them like they were art in a gallery. Because to us, they were. My routine shifted. I cooked more. I sat down to eat. I planned my weeks without accounting for someone else's emergencies. The numbers in my budget stayed where I put them. That steadiness felt like a quiet kind of wealth. Lauren tried to reach out once. A short message. Neutral. Careful.
We should talk sometime.
I read it, felt the familiar tug, and let it pass. "I'm not ready," I replied. "I wish you well." I meant it. And I meant the boundary too. New connections filled the space where tension used to live. A coworker named Jenna invited us over for dinner. No pressure. No expectations. Just warmth. Ava played with her dog in the yard while we talked about nothing important and everything that mattered. "You seem lighter," Jenna said at one point. I answered, surprised again by how true it felt. There were still hard days. Healing isn't a straight line. Sometimes a song would come on the radio and I'd feel the old ache, years of giving without being seen. But the ache didn't control me anymore.
It passed.
On Sundays, Ava and I started a new ritual. Pancakes in pajamas. Music playing softly. No rushing. We talked about the week ahead, about things we were excited for. She grew more confident, raising her hand in class more, smiling easier. "You're different," she said one morning, syrup on her chin.
"How?" I asked.
"Happier," she said simply. I realized then that rebuilding wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about winning. It was about choosing peace over performance, stability over applause. One evening, as the sun set, I stood in the doorway of our home and looked around. The walls were fresh. The air felt open. The quiet wasn't lonely, it was full. I locked the door, turned off the lights, and sat with Ava on the couch, her head resting against my shoulder. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, we were exactly where we needed to be. A year passes without asking permission. I notice it one morning when Ava is tying her own shoes, fingers steady, movements confident. She doesn't look up for help. She just does it. The realization settles in me slowly. We've grown into this life.
Quietly. Completely.
It's her birthday. Not a big party. Just a few friends from school. Balloons taped unevenly to the wall. A cake I baked myself. The kitchen smells like vanilla and something warm I can't name. Laughter fills the space without echoing. I set the presents on the table and watch as Ava tears into them with focused joy. No one is late. No one steals the moment. Everyone who said they'd come is here. Later, as the sun dips low, I step outside for a moment. My car sits in the driveway, clean but familiar. The same one. Still running. Still enough. I lean against it and smile, not because of what I own, but because of what I no longer carry. Lauren and I speak sometimes now.
Carefully. Briefly.
She sends photos. Neutral updates. There's no apology, but there's distance. And distance, I've learned, can be a form of respect. Our relationship exists on my terms. That's new. That's everything. Inside, Ava lights the candles herself this year. She looks at me before blowing them out. Make a wish, I tell her. I already did, she says and blows. Later, when the house quiets and wrapping paper is gathered into a bag, I sit at the table with a cup of tea and open my journal. The pages are no longer filled with numbers and contingency plans. Now they hold reflections. Lessons written gently, without anger. I write. Some people confuse access with entitlement. Some people mistake silence for weakness. And some power never needs to be announced. I close the journal and look around. The walls we painted. The pictures we hung. The life we rebuilt piece by piece. This place doesn't impress anyone. It doesn't need to. It holds us. Ava pads in, half asleep, and crawls into my lap. Home, she murmurs. Yes, I whisper, holding her close. Home. Outside, the world keeps moving, loud, fast, flashy. Inside, there's peace. Earned. Protected. Chosen. I turn off the light, carrying her to bed, knowing something I didn't before. I didn't lose anything by setting boundaries. I gained myself. Enough. Home. Narrator. Emily Carter. Top of form. Bottom of form.